This is just a quick video going over a problem I had with the Holley Terminator X system and this LS engine that I just finished up putting in a BMW 1 Series. It doesn't matter what car it's in, it's more of a Holley problem than an LS problem than it is a chassis problem. But I was having a problem where I got the car back together and everything was running and driving great. It idled fine, it drove fine. But as soon as you would hit like 4,000 or 4,100 RPM, the engine would basically cut off and die. It would bumble down. It would be like a hard shut off. As soon as it would hit 4,000 RPM and feel like the engine would just shut off, it would drop down to about 1,000 RPM and bumble real bad, bang and pop if you put your foot on the accelerator at all, and then eventually it would just stall out. It would restart totally fine, drive again, perfectly fine until you hit that 4,000 RPM mark and then shut off again. I was able to data log the problem and get a really good look at what was going on, so I'm just going to run you through what I did to diagnose the problem and what actually ended up fixing it. Here's the data log of what I was just talking about. Green line is throttle position, so you can see here wide open throttle. Light blue line is just air fuel ratio. It would spike like crazy when the issue was happening. The red line is RPM here, so you can see here the RPM. I would smash the throttle to 100%. RPM would climb and climb until it hit about 4,000 RPM and then fall right on its face, still having the accelerator pedal to the floor the whole time. So RPM would drop all the way down to like 1,000 RPM, and then eventually it would just stall out over here. So this was a nice data log that I was able to capture of it. The issue I was able to catch with it was this diag number 6. So I was able to put diag number 6 into one of these tables here, and you can see exactly when the issue starts to happen. This light purple line, diag number 6, starts to go off the charts, registering or indicating an error with either cam or crank signal. So that was the first indication that I was having a problem with losing cam or crank signal. It's a little unclear about which one it is. It's not like a direct link to cam or crank. It could be either missing a cam sensor signal or seeing an extra crank sensor signal. So it could be either one. So what I did to diagnose that problem was put the car into waste spark mode and run it just off of the crankshaft position sensor. You can do that by going into ignition parameters under EFI. You can change this from, I have it on GM LSX 58 tooth because that's what this engine is. It's a 58 reluctor wheel LS1. Custom, configure, down here, cam sensor, not used. Bank to bank, that's what we want. DIS waste fire, you can put this at 3 seconds. 3 milliseconds. Shoot this into the computer, and it's going to take a while for it to crank over, but it will fire up and run just off of the crank sensor only. Try to rev it up, and it still did it. So at 4,000 RPM, it fell on its face again, indicating that the engine was just running off the crankshaft position sensor, and it still did it. So I knew it wasn't the camshaft sensor because it was turned off, and it was still doing it. If I had done this and it actually started working fine, then I know it would have been a problem with the camshaft sensor. But since it's continued to do it after I did this, I knew it was with the crankshaft position sensor. So my next thing was to put the car up on the lift and pull the crankshaft position sensor out and take a look at it. This is the crankshaft sensor that I pulled out of it. Brand new AC Delco from GM, crankshaft position sensor for a 58 tooth reluctor wheel. Pulled this out of there. The only reason I was able to determine that this was kind of the issue was from help on Facebook. Posted it in a couple of different spots, and people were very helpful and just kind of said, hey, you know what, try a gray crankshaft position sensor, just rule that out and see if that was an issue. These crankshaft position sensors from GM used to be made in a gray color. They switched over to a black colored sensor a long time ago. So from GM, you can only get a black sensor. So I went and found a gray crankshaft position sensor. This one's from Dorman, 917760. Same exact crankshaft position sensor, but it is gray. It does look slightly different, but it is for a 58 tooth reluctor wheel. I looked it up for a 2014 Chevy Caprice with a 6 liter from Napa, I believe I got this one from. Popped this gray crankshaft position sensor in there, fired it up, and immediately everything started working perfectly fine. I could rev over 4,000 RPM. It would go all the way to red line and hit the rev limiter, main rev limiter. So I'm not really sure if it's a compatibility issue between the Terminator X and this crankshaft position sensor specifically, but the AC Delco one was not working for me, and the gray colored crankshaft position sensor from Dorman, or there's a couple of other ones. You could use an NTK or Dorman sensor. Seems to be working just fine for me right now. Hopefully it does continue to work for me. If it doesn't, I'll update this video. But just in case you guys run into something like this or an issue, maybe don't try an AC Delco sensor. Maybe try to grab one of these gray colored sensors from Dorman or NTK or Napa brand and throw that in there and just try it out. Seems to be working for me. So just wanted to update that video or make a video on this to see if it helps anybody else. Thanks.